When I was a young child, my mother and I lived in a small house in Southern California. Before you think it was glamorous, let me tell you about where this house was. It was on a dusty road, a dirt road, across the street from a truck farm. And in our backyard was this beautiful, enormous old apricot tree. The tree produced too many apricots for my mother and I to enjoy alone, or even more than we could turn into jam. And so we walked around town with bags and bags of fresh apricots. Everywhere we would go in the summer, we said, "We have so many of these. Would you please take some for your family, for your neighbors?" And in the same community, when a neighbor had too many zucchini, or lemons, or kumquats, or persimmons, bags would appear magically on our doorstep or be handed to us after church. It was such a joy to share in what we all had in abundance. We all have different gifts in abundance to share with one another. Some of us, we are rich in faith. Some of us are rich in forgiving others. Some of us are carrying around and distributing bags and bags of hopefulness in this world. And some of us are bursting. We have so much joy to share. Some others have abundant wisdom. Some have the heart of Christ to heal others, to serve others. In the gospel text today, we meet a man initially reduced to an object of righteous-sounding gossip and judgment. People are pondering the cause of his condition, creating distance from him, absolutely missing out on his gifts. And they are the poorer for it. The disciples thought that blindness was a punishment. That was the prevailing thinking of their day. Jesus dispels this notion right away. It's very difficult for us to wedge open the locked doors of our minds where that prevailing teaching might sit, to allow another explanation, a fresh understanding, to sneak into our minds, into our hearts, and change us. We can get pretty set in our ways. And some of our ways prevent us from experiencing the salvation of a grace-filled life while yet we walk this earth. So I want to admit to something here. There's this bit of an ironic twist when I read this story in John's Gospel. It happens with a few other Bible stories for me. As I read this text, I find that I get very judgmental myself about the disciples and the authorities and these Pharisees that are so quick to put this man who's been healed on trial in a way. They judge him, they bring in his parents. And as I stand there in judgment of them, I'm kind of turning into them, aren't I? Do you see that play in the text? This text can feel a bit like a trap to catch me, to wake me up and show me how prone I am to want to feel better than somebody, anybody else, even somebody living 2,000 years ago. Being a Christian can be very tricky. This text offers us salvation. It offers us a story that exposes for us the saving and grace-filled ways we can learn to live together as Jesus calls us to live. We see a man who has walked through the valley of the shadow of death, and he has met his good shepherd, the good shepherd who spread a table before him in the presence of those who troubled him. Now, we know that as human beings, we can grow very uncomfortable without an explanation for every little thing. And if we do not have one, we might be quick to manufacture some faulty judgment rather than to live with uncertainty. So then the important words for us in the text might be, neither this man nor his parents sinned. God is not punishing babies for the sins of parents, and blindness is not divine punishment. Being in bodies that work in different ways has nothing to do with God punishing humanity. We can see here that it is harder to see, it is harder to believe when we are objectifying and ostracizing one another. It is easier to see. It is easier to believe when we are instead sharing the gift of God's grace and celebrating it. The joy that comes with passing out abundant apricots and receiving zucchinis from your neighbors, that is a kind of joy that can come to us when we grow in grace, when we learn to share the grace that we have experienced, to receive God's grace from others with open arms, when we experience that grace through forgiveness and acceptance and compassion and understanding. That grace between us growing can become this natural impulse when we try it. Then when we repeat it again and again, and we stick to it. It's something we must practice. God's grace is even more abundant than a summer harvest. And yet some of us find that we are blocked by our own cynicism from really giving it and receiving it. What a loss for us. It's piling up and it's ready to enjoy and it's there for us to share all the time. Let us not reject it. Now, I know that I am standing in a very generous community. This is a generous congregation. This, for those of you that do not know me, this is the congregation that sent us off in 2003 in the spring or in the summer when I left for seminary with my husband Dave. We walked in those doors from moving to Charles Village in the late 90s. This is our home congregation, our sending parish, if you will. We know how generous this congregation is, how this congregation has for many decades extended God's grace to others in so many ways. You are generous in supporting this cathedral building and the beautiful grounds, in supporting this worship service. You open those beautiful doors to neighbors and friends and strangers and families and students. You truly offer a generous welcome to the beautiful array of human beings with different bodies and backgrounds and experiences, with differing gifts and differing struggles. You are a generous congregation to one another right here today, sharing your handbells and your voices in praise of God, sharing your stories of faith, your hopes, and your prayers. You share from your labor in the offerings that will be gathered and brought to this altar. By giving, you are putting a part of your very self into the plate, onto the altar. Your labor, the labor of your mind, the labor of your body, it's there on the altar to be blessed and shared. The ministry of this congregation touches and transforms and heals so many lives. And you have made that touch, that transformation, a priority in your life. Your life is brought to this altar, and then God's grace is shared through you in abundance from the Eucharist out to wherever you go. Now you'll notice today that we are honoring the Legacy Society of the Cathedral, and there is a special list on the back of your community highlights form. And so you'll notice from this list that you are a generous community in your intention to support ministry here, not only while you are alive, also after you leave this beautiful earth. Since this has been our spiritual home as a family, I understand your desire to support the cathedral after you die. You and I know that there is no place like this special place where we see God at work in our lives, where an anthem or a gentle touch can lift you out of despair, where the preaching can draw you into a place of peace and strength. This is a special place where God's people are welcomed, and they are fed, and they are clothed, and they are celebrated and comforted and cared for no matter what nation they were born in, no matter their age or how much money or education they have or do not have. This cathedral community is such a special place, filled with people doing the work that God is calling us to do. So many of you have decided to support it financially in this life and have made plans to support it also in the next. If you have not yet done so, I invite you to prayerfully consider leaving a portion of your earthly wealth, whether it's small, medium, or large, to the ministries of this cathedral. You can see the small sheet in your pew rack. It looks like this. This is a gift from the Episcopal Diocese of Maryland to our congregations. It's a way to make a will for free online and to protect your family and gain peace of mind and to share in the ministries of this place forever, really. According to my dear colleague and my predecessor in this role in the diocese, the Reverend Charles Clowen, who champions planned giving wherever he goes, and especially here in his beloved cathedral, according to Charles, 43 of you have left a planned gift in your will to the ministries of the cathedral. Future generations want to say thank you. That's a commitment of a portion of your estate to continue the good work begun long before any of us walked through those doors. Long, long ago, perhaps even on that long ago Sabbath day, when Jesus spat on the ground and then took that mud and spread it on the man's eyes, work that began when that man washed his eyes and saw Jesus and said, I believe. Amen.